some chess attacks look really, really good, but are in fact meaningless. I'm talking about moments where every piece is in the attack, but there are simply no points of entry. And these fake attacks are really important to identify, and the game today beautifully illustrates how you should go about dealing with them. This is Smyslov vs. Fischer. This is game number 15 from My 60 Memorable Games. You're watching the Chess Geek channel. We upload every other day, so make sure you subscribe. Let's jump straight into the game. So Fischer with the black pieces plays the Sicilian defense, the opening that we've seen many, many times from this book. Indeed, it was a very common opening back then. It still is today, a super common topical defense. And we again see this very ultra-aggressive decision from white to go queen f3, f4, e4, and try to immediately go for an attack. Black decides to very calmly defend and develop their pieces. We have b5, a counter-attacking idea aiming for b4. There is bishop takes, knight takes, and g5. We've seen this sort of idea already before. Here there is b4 and knight to e2, bishop to b7. There's a very interesting idea here that could have been played. In the game, king to b1 was played, a very natural move, simply getting out of the c file, which could be dangerous. But a very common idea as well is this interesting sacrifice on e6. We have two pieces aiming there. So for example, bishop e6 was an interesting tactical opportunity, and after pawn takes, knight takes, the queen's attacked, g7 is attacked. That would have definitely been pretty difficult for black to deal with. They would have had to be very, very careful here. So those are definitely interesting piece sacrifices that you should be looking for. King to b1, knight to g3 is played, and d5, starting to open up the center, which might seem weird at first glance. The king is in the center, but one of the things that you need to notice is that if white immediately begins to commit and place all of their pieces and maybe drag the bishop back and get the knight towards the center, we can very quickly castle. But instead, if we prematurely castle, well, white will instead be able to commit to a kingside attack. So that's sort of where the flexibility of the system comes into play. So we have f5. You can see that white is indeed trying to attack on the king side. We have some trades in the center, g6, a trade of pieces as well. And I think this is sort of the moment where the attack begins to develop for white, or at least that's what it might seem like. You see this move rook to f6. The pieces are lining up. You have the knight, the bishop, this other rook is coming to the f-file. Yes, you are down a pawn, but even so, white might seem like they are doing fine here. I mean, they have these pieces. You can already start considering various sacrifices. What is going on here? Well, one of the things that you objectively need to think about here is to kind of take away your emotional reaction to these sort of moves and instead just think logically, right? This is the weakest spot on the board, but it's very nicely defended by three pieces here. If need be, you can definitely defend it with a bishop, maybe trade one of the pieces. Additionally, you're up a pawn, so you can definitely sacrifice one of your pawns for the sake of defending. But also, you can use that extra material and try to actually push and promote. And so all of these factors combined make it so this attack is by no means dangerous. It is a toothless attack, and that is one of the things that is important to recognize, to not be scared in front of attacks where, you know, your opponent's lining up pieces, but think objectively, try to decipher what is actually going on and proceed from there. So Fischer indeed does this. He goes rook to d5. The intention of this move is very simply to double the rooks and go for some back rank issues. You also now control the e5 square, making moves like queen to e5 possible, which would be good because, of course, trading queens in a position like this would be great, getting to an endgame up a pawn. So bishop g4 was played. We indeed see knight to d7 now, trying to kick away, harass this rook. But one of the things that you should notice here, just as we were talking about a fake kind of attack with the white pieces, this is also kind of a fake attack because the rook is not actually threatened to be taken. If you take this rook, then after g takes on f6, queen to h6 and queen g7 would be a very thematic mating idea. And that is what Fischer realizes here. If you were to take, then after takes, you can't move the queen because they're going to mate you. You have to go for g5 here, counterattacking, but this is obviously very, very bad. You can take the rook here, but even better is to take the pawn with deadly effect. So, going backwards, knight to d7 is still a good move, even if you're not threatening to take. You control more squares, and at the right moment, it might become possible to take. In the game, the continuation was e3 here, pushing the pawn forward. we have b3, we have rook to d2. So after the move rook to d2, white decided to play bishop takes d7, getting rid of this idea once and for all. We, in this position, have rook takes d7. You could have played queen to c5, trying to maintain the attack and gain some initiative, but there's this annoying move, bishop f5, giving back the piece, but in a way that ruins the black pawn structure. So that's why instead the simple rook to d7 is better. We are still up a pawn, a very dangerous pawn as well. Again, the attack is meaningless and fruitless here. There's no actual pressure. And indeed, white starts shifting their focus towards this pawn that is the dangerous pawn now. We have rook to e8, defending the pawn, h4, trying to, at all costs, break in. But once again, not so scary, queen to c5. It's going to be too slow, this idea of going h5, because there's already too much pressure. The queen is infiltrating on the weak dark squares. With the help of the rook, that's going to be deadly. So to stop this, we have queen to c4, necessary to trade the queens off. And indeed, this endgame is not so glamorous. It takes a lot of conversion. We've talked a lot about endgames in this series because we've seen many of them. This one, it's not much different from some of the other ones that we've seen where we're up a pawn. White's pawn structures are also way worse. You can see these pawns are very weak. This pawn is very strong. And so you do need to be careful, as always in these endgames. There's always chances for mistakes to happen and for your opponent to find great defensive resources. But if you play with an abundance of caution, this should not be that problematic. We have knight to d3 now. Another option was to trade off and sacrifice the knight to try to simplify into a position where the bishop and rook versus rook might not be winning, but it is here because we can get the rook in, take on g5, for example, bishop e6 check, and then taking on g5, and it's game over. So instead, knight to d3 was played, trying to maintain the defensive structure, but after bishop to f5, it's all over. We're threatening to take and then promote. In the game, c7 was played, and in this position, the move rook to f3 was played, which is a very interesting decision. Much simpler was just to take the knight, let them promote, but we promote as well, and we do so in a way where the attack continues. We have rook to c2, mate is coming, so they have to give away the queen, but of course this is very easily winning. Now, if we go back, as I mentioned, this is not what was played in the game. Instead, the very cautious rook to f3 was played, not letting them promote. It is a little delay for our promotion as well, but we're going to take the knight next and then promote. We're actually threatening to promote as well right now because it's pinned, so this is also going to do the job. They tried to sacrifice, but okay, I mean, again, a rook endgame, always a little scary because maybe your opponent can somehow defend, but no. In this position, the two extra far passed pawns on the side of the board, there's not going to be anything stopping those. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you guys subscribe for more content like this. Like this video if you learned something new from it, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.